Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this session, which is called Decoding Digital Transformation. My name is Chris Blackwell. I am the scale-up lead for Birmingham Tech Week. And today I'm going to be hosting this session, which is all about digital transformation. Now, before we get into that, just wanted to talk a little bit about, first of all, to thank our sponsors. And we're joined by representatives from two of our sponsors today. So we have Intercity Technology and Phil Binley from Intercity Technology is with us. And Phil will tell us a little bit more about Intercity Technology and what they do shortly. And we also have Carl Nicholson from Spherica, another one of our sponsors. And Carl will tell us a little bit more about Spherica. But we've been very blessed this year to be supported by numerous sponsors. And we just want to say a big thank you to all of them, because without them, Birmingham Tech Week would not be possible. So today's topic is decoding digital transformation. And I, as a non-tech person, so Steph, if we could get you to stop sharing screen, if that's okay. As a non-technical person, it sometimes feels a bit like this. So I think Dilbert pretty much always has an answer for everything in life. But as a non-technical person, I'm involved with Tech Week, but my sort of specialism is business growth. But, you know, we hear all these things like fintech and AI and business process automation, cloud, and all this stuff about data security. And sometimes it can seem a little bit impenetrable. And, you know, therefore you get naive people like me. I'm the person with the hair who can easily be tricked into believing that the block of wood is a new piece of AI. But today, thankfully, we have been joined by some amazing experts who are going to help us decode digital transformation. And we're going to focus on three areas. We're going to focus, first of all, on fintech. And in particular, Dan Sullivan from Crowd Property is going to talk to us about peer-to-peer lending and how that is different to traditional finance. Carl is going to talk to us about automation and AI. It is more than just a block of wood. And Phil is going to talk to us about digital infrastructure, cloud and security. And they are going to help us understand it much better. So whether you're a technical person, whether you're a business leader, the aim for this session is that you come out understanding things a lot more. Now, we want it to be interactive as well. So we're using Zoom webinar, which means we can't see you, but you can see us. So we want to encourage you to use the chat through the session to kind of ask questions. So I'm going to ask you now, going to encourage everybody in the audience, get into the chat box. So at the bottom of your screen, hopefully you can see, I think it's under the more, or you might even have it as chat there. If you've got the chat function, type a little message, say hello to us. If you've got something that you want answering in today's session, so we've got a message from Suze saying she's going to look forward to this. We want some difficult questions for our panel. You know, first of all, let's start, before they introduce themselves, tell us what you want to know about digital transformation. Tell us which buzzwords or words you find a bit impenetrable and a bit hard to understand. And what we'll try and do is we'll try and keep an eye on the chat as we go through the session and make it as real as possible. So hello from Suze, hello from Ian Mansell, hello from Jay Smith. Those of you who've not typed a message yet, don't be shy. Use the message box, use the chat box and send us a message. But I'm going to encourage people now. Let's say hello to our panelists. So Dan, let's start with you. Tell us about you and tell us about Crowd Property.
Hi, I'm Dan Sullivan, as Chris said. I work for Crowd Property, so we're a leading property marketplace lender based here in Birmingham. So we lend specifically on property development finance for SME developers. We've been founded in 2014. We've grown pretty consistently and hugely. In fact, actually, we were just talking before you all joined us, and Chris had asked how much growth we'd gone through. And I gave the example from a team perspective that by the time I'd interviewed a couple of years ago, only 3 years ago I joined. When I interviewed, there were 5 people in the team. By the time I joined a month later, there were 12, and now we're a team of 50, all working together. And we'll talk a little bit more about the problems that we're trying to solve in a finance perspective a little bit later on.
Excellent. Well, welcome, Dan. I'm going to move over to Carl now. Carl, say hello. Tell us a bit about you and tell us a bit about your business.
Hello, everybody. Thanks very much for the introduction, Chris. My name's Carl Nicholson, and I actually work across 2 companies. Spherica, firstly, which is a sponsor of Birmingham Tech Week, is a managed IT service provider based in Birmingham, and most of our clients are based in the city as well. That's, I think, at the current count, around about 70-ish people. Never quite sure how many it is. We seem to be growing by the day. Most of that growth has happened in the last 12 months, which, as Daniel pointed out, hasn't been without its challenges, shall we say. And the other company I'm going to talk about a little bit today, because it's probably more relevant to this conversation, is a business called Synaptech, which is actually part of Spherica. Thank you very much.
Okay, apologies, Carl. We stopped recording, but we restarted. So, okay. And then Phil, finally, tell us about you and tell us about your company.
Thanks, Chris. Welcome, everybody. So, yeah, I'm the managing director of the Cloud and Security Division at Intercity Technology, again, one of the sponsors of Birmingham Tech Week. Intercity's been in Birmingham city centre now for like 35 years. It was founded by a guy called Alan Jackson, who's probably many of you on this call have come across in your working lives. He's a very successful entrepreneur that set up a mobile phone selling business back in the day when a mobile phone was the size of a house brick. Intercity has really invested heavily in people. We have a very customer-centric approach to what we do. And in addition to the mobile side of the business, through acquisition over the last 5 years, we acquired a business in the unified comms space. And we also acquired a managed service provider, an IT managed service provider. Those 3 businesses are now all amalgamated into one, but we have divisionalized them. So we have a communications division, we have a managed services division, and then the division that I look after, which focuses around cloud and security. So yeah, we're really proud to be here, really proud to be sponsoring the week. And back to you, Chris.
Excellent. Okay, so before we get into the content, so the structure of today is we're going to have each of our guests talk about their specialist area and debunk it for us, make it more understandable. But before that, we've got a question in the chat from Ian Mansell. And so let's start with this question, actually. So it says, digital transformation, process versus people. Which takes most effort?
People.
People. Dan, you're nodding. Carl?
Yeah, absolutely.
Who wants to unpack that a little bit more?
It's a change in a way of working for a lot of organizations and a lot of IT teams, especially if you look at sort of mid-market type organizations where the IT team have probably been doing pretty much the same thing day in and day out for all of their working lives. And they're really involved in housekeeping, keeping the lights on, making sure that the everyday business as usual activities take place, to making sure the backups have run, dealing with patching things when there's a security update that comes out. And really the transformation piece can quite often take a back burner because those teams are heavily involved in that day-to-day stuff. So it's about how you structure it and about how you think about strategically what you're trying to evolve in your business and how you're going to achieve those things. And some of the platforms and services that various different organizations provide helps you free up that time that you need within your IT teams to go and do those things. Equally and opposite, you may well take a strategic decision that actually, I need my internal IT resources focusing on that, keeping the lights on, and I'm going to go out and seek expertise externally to help me on that digital transformation journey, because it's not necessarily the skill set that you have internally. So there are various different ways of cutting that one up, I suppose.
Okay, excellent. Well, it might be something we could revisit. Sorry, Carl, go on.
Can I just expand on that a little bit? And I'm really spot on, Phil. I completely agree with you. And I think, just to take that a little bit further, I think IT as a function is very, very different depending on which organizations we're talking about these days. And it was, and sometimes still is, about keeping the lights on and everything, wheel spinning, etc. I think where digital transformation works and works well is IT stop doing those things. They still need to be done, but let's employ automation technologies to make that happen for us and provide assurance to leadership to make sure it happens. But IT need to become architecture people, in my humble opinion, or technology department as opposed to IT, because we are ultimately delivering as techies the vision our CIOs laid out for us, and it's up to those IT teams to put that stuff in place to enable what we're calling the future of work, IT transformation, etc. And it is different. It's very different. So we need to build a technology stack around our people, aligned with the business, to deliver on whatever it is we need to do. And IT in its current form, I think, if you think about that in terms of scope, it's gone from this big to now this big. It's almost everything the business does and touches. So it's far bigger. And I think, in fairness to IT teams, the investment, the leadership, etc., needs to grow with that new level of responsibility that they now have. And sometimes you have to have a deep, hard look at yourself and say, is the team I currently have geared up for delivering everything we just described as well? So sometimes IT gets a bad rap, but they're having to deal with more stuff than ever before as well.
Yeah, and of course, inevitably, they've had security thrown over the fence at them, because security is an IT function. No, it isn't. Security is a business function. I get exactly what they're dealing with. You're spot on, Carl.
Excellent. Well, that might be a theme that comes back as a thread as we go through the discussions. We've got another question from Suze, but we're going to save that for a little bit. And we're going to get into, at some point, we'll have a little chat about hybrid working. But I want to now delve into the world of fintech. Actually, I don't want to delve into it. I want Dan to delve into it and educate me and all of you. And again, for those of you in our audience, encourage you to use the chat as we go. If you've got a question, if something doesn't make sense, pop it in the chat. If you want us to expand a bit more, tell us. And these guys are really good, so make your questions as difficult as you want. And I'm pretty confident that they can answer them. Okay, so Dan, tell us about the world of fintech. Insofar as where crowd property works.
Right. Should.
Yep.
That's
up there.
I'm just going to get rid of the chat and we are ready to go. So I work as a senior product manager here at Crowd Property. So my role is to ensure that we've got the right requirements for developing all of our products. And I try and separate our products into internal products and external products. So anything we use internally to make ourselves more efficient are all our internals, and anything the customer sees, and we'll talk about our customers in a minute, are all our external ones. And all of that is working towards solving the pains at the heart of our business model. So Chris has asked me to explain what peer-to-peer is, and the easiest way to explain it really is that all we're doing is matching investor capital, so money that me and you or anyone else might have, and borrower demand on a particular asset class. So in Crowd Property's case, our asset class is first charge debt secured against UK property. And all that really means is that we hold the first charge on any project property that we lend against. So that's basically just like a mortgage. So if anything were to go wrong, we would be first in line for getting any of that cash back. And mentioning the asset class here is really important, because any really good implementation of peer-to-peer means that the business underwriting it has to have a really, really good understanding of the asset class that they're trying to underwrite, so understand, to make sure that we can mitigate any of those risks for investors. And investors may well be retail investors in a pure peer-to-peer model, or in, like for us, as a marketplace business, we've migrated away from just retail investors, so anyone off the street, into a mix of retail and institutional investors as well. So the power of peer-to-peer is probably best shown with a bit of a value chain analysis. So if I pull up a value chain analysis, if my PowerPoint will work for me. So if we looked at just an example, if I put some money into a fund through an IFA and I wanted to lend against some property. The idea behind all of this, let me just find my pointer. The idea behind all of this is that from a retail investor perspective, by the time that I have given some money to an IFA, they found a bank that's got some products that they want, they've given it to a property lender. The property lender's gone out and found a broker that knows some developers, they've given it to the broker, and then the broker finds a developer and the developer goes, right, I'd like to have some money off you. Fundamentally, all of these people in between have all got to make some money for their business to work. Therefore, it sets a minimum amount that the developer can ever pay, because otherwise no one will make any money. And it also ends up with a very, very low return for our retail investors. And I'm sure everyone on the call will understand that, having looked at what their savings accounts will be generating in their bank accounts. So for that, we've really got to look at this. So if we look at what we do from a peer-to-peer perspective, is effectively cut all the middlemen out. Now, you could argue that in the traditional model, all of these people here are adding value, otherwise they wouldn't be involved. So how do we move across from going straight from a retail investor into crowd property, finding the developers directly? And this disintermediation aspect of it shouldn't be underestimated. The idea to go direct to the developer, especially from a property perspective, is one of the key differentiators for us, purely because to understand, so that when I talked earlier on about asset classes, we can really understand the underneath property deal that we're going to be underwriting. That bit's the really key bit for us to be able to underwrite efficiently and effectively, and at least mitigate those risks for the investors. So all of this then is supported by technology, and I would sort of talk about the technology in two aspects. So there's the fintech aspects, and then there's the prop tech aspects, and I'll unpack that a little bit in a minute. But if this model always works, why doesn't a bank do it? So if we look at what a bank's operating costs are like, and if they were lending a loan, it doesn't have to be a loan to do with property, it can be a business loan. If they were lending a business loan at 10%, 7% of that money that they earn, or indeed basically 7/10 of it, is all their costs. So if you think of a bank, they've got to have branches, they've got to have people running the branches, they've got to have all of their legacy IT systems. You can start to see all of these costs rack up. For them to make any profit, they're going to have to take some of the profit out, and then you get your 1% investor returns, although you can tell this was done in 2015 because I can't remember seeing 1% return on my bank balance for a while. So the idea with all of this, and this example was run by McKinsey, and they used mainstream banks and then Lending Club, which is a very successful peer-to-peer lender in the US. And what they found was that Lending Club's investor returns were about 5.3% at the time. And that's purely because that fundamental cost advantage of Lending Club just didn't have to run the mainstream bank apparatus underneath. And all of that has got to be supported by technology. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a lender that's run entirely on spreadsheets, and spreadsheets are not a particularly efficient or effective way of doing things. So all those legacy ITs, the overheads, the branch networks, we get rid of all of those, and effectively it's all done through our platform. So where are we? Let me just hit onto here, and then we're just going to talk a little bit more. So I will show you some of the track record numbers firstly, but those specialist lenders that deal with debt finance, so you've got the traditional banks, and actually traditional banks fundamentally aren't really that interested now in lending on property, not in a property development perspective. There's some very complicated economic things like cost of capital requirements and having cash set aside that we won't go into too much. But they're not particularly interested in it, which means that the specialist lenders have stepped up. Now, specialist lenders generally end up being run on spreadsheets, unfortunately, and that's where we've tried to move entirely away from that. So our in-house engineering team build, test, maintain our own platform so that we can run our loan book, which carries all of our underwriting data so that we can then provide all of our in-house property team, which are all surveyors and all sort of sitting over that side of the office, all the information that they can make good informed decisions. And this is where the blend of prop tech and fintech will come in. This is then backed up by our integrations into our third-party providers. So where there's no good solution in the market, we'll build it ourselves. If there's no easy way to access data, we'll bring it together, amalgamate it, and then mine it out ourselves as well. But if there's a really good solution that we know is best in class, we'll just build it in and integrate it. And that's one of the key bits for us to grow as a smaller team of 50, that we can't build absolutely everything. So we pick and choose the good bits to build and the ones that we want to. It also helps that the office that you'll see me in, we're all on one floor. So from my perspective, and purely selfishly as a product manager, it means that I can talk to the person doing the business process and then bring it straight to the engineering team, which is relatively easy for me to manage, which is better. So for us, and to sort of sum up what fintech is for us, it's everything that our platform does, running the loan book, our payments controls, doing drawdowns on multiple live projects, repayments, all the way through to interest calculations, showing what the investors are getting back. Remember that some investors will be in 50 live loans. So to do an interest calculation on every single one of their loans, bearing in mind there might be 1,000 investors on every one of our loans, doing that on a spreadsheet doesn't sound like a particularly effective way of doing things. And so that's really where we're going from a technology perspective, from a fintech side of things. And the prop tech is basically everything else. So giving us all the data that we need to in a single view, so that we can do underwriting, integrating our proprietary platform, and all of our analysis as well. So we'll go through trends in property, all the way back from the 1970s, all the way through, to give ourselves the confidence that we're underwriting correctly. But what does that mean for our customers? Well, I've got some numbers to talk through, but I'll pull them all up, and then in effect, the borrower side, we deliver, and we have delivered for a while now, speed, ease, and certainty of funding. And that's really what the borrower wants, is that certainty of knowing that if they ask for a drawdown, 24 hours later, they'll have the money in their account, supported by our PropTech implementation. They can get indicative terms in 24 hours. So if they ask for a project to be funded, within 24 hours, they will get that information. We ensure that independent eyes are all over their project plans, their cost of works, all of the bits that you want from an underwriting perspective to know absolutely they are nailed. And then from our investors, our business model's more efficient than the banks. We've had a quick look at that. We allow for a much greater return for the cash being implemented. So we provide also some tax efficient ways of investing. So you can do a SIP or a SAS pension investing. We also do innovative finance ISAs for those. So, and some of the numbers, I mean, we're still 100% capital and interest payback track record, which we are very proud of. The load of investors, and we're really adding to that gap in the market of we're still not building enough homes in Britain. So building 1,800 homes is actually really, really impressive for us. And that's it. Were there any questions in the chat?
Well, I think you have demystified fintech, because there are no questions from anybody on all of that. But if I may, Dan, and maybe this is a theme, we seem to have lost Carl, so we're going to crack on, and hopefully Carl will be able to rejoin us pretty soon. But a couple of things that stood out to me. So you used the term, which I've not heard before, and I'm going to try and get it right, disintermediation.
Disintermediation. So with that, we are using our platform to get direct applications from the borrowers. So traditionally, if you're doing any kind of property development finance, you will go to a broker, because there are so many different players in the market to get the funds from. A broker really is the only one that will understand where the best deal is. By going direct, we can cut the cost out from a borrower's perspective of they don't have to pay their broker fee. but also we get to know the borrower themselves. And from a underwriting in particular, when we were doing more retail only investors, the retail investors were actually really interested in the person and the story that we then tell when we advertise a project to be funded, and we'll probably put one live this week, if not 2 or 3. Investors are really keen to actually read about the person, and doing it through a broker means that you never really get to know the person underneath who's actually going to be doing the project at the end of the day, and the one that we're backing with our underwriting. So that's that disintermediation for you.
Yeah. And it'll be interesting to see, because we're going to move into 2 very different areas of digital transformation. But that, if I could sum it up in layman's terms, it's just kind of chopping out lots of steps of the process to make it much more direct. And
I suppose the thing I'd summarize is that all the tech and all the solutions that I help the team come up with and we define is to get all the information onto a single place where the human brain that wants to do the underwriting can do it in the most efficient way. So the way I'd sort of sum it up is we have the 2 E's, efficiency and effectiveness. And the efficiency is brought from technology, and the effectiveness is brought from the fact that we've got experts in the company.
Excellent. I like that. Okay, so from the world of fintech now to the world of the cloud and data security. So Phil, over to you. Tell us a little bit about digital transformation in your world.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I talk to a lot of people about what I do, and it's quite often quite difficult to explain it, because I come from a technical background, although I'm the managing director of this division. So I have to understand P&Ls, I have to understand marketing, I have to understand lots of things, but I come from a technology background. And throughout my career, I've always been, it's been commented on that I have an ability to translate. I've always seen myself as a bit of a translator, taking these hard technical concepts or conversations that the technical part of an organization is having, and being able to translate those into things that businesses understand. And that's, if there's a gap in our market in terms of technologists, it's that ability to do that, to be able to sit both sides and have 2 ears, one listening business, the other one listening technology, and to translate between the two to avoid confusion. And when I joined Intercity at the beginning of the year, my division is the youngest in Intercity, and therefore I needed to sort of explain to the people who work in our organization, who maybe have been focused in the world of mobile and communications, not really immersed in that world of cloud and security. So I spent some time thinking about it, and I thought, I wonder if there's a way that I can relate this to something that everyone will understand, that's in their everyday lives, that makes perfect sense, that doesn't need lots of acronyms and lots of jargon, and just try and demystify the whole piece. And what we do in Intercity is that we have various numbers of services that we provide to our customers. The first of which is we own our own data center in the center of Birmingham, where people take their infrastructure, their IT infrastructure, and they run it from there. Why do they do that? Well, because it has that diverse electrical supply. It has resilient cooling and resilient fire suppression system, everything that you need. And what that did was that allowed me to actually think, do you know what? That's a bit like renting a flat. So co-location is renting a flat. When you move into a rented flat, there's nothing there apart from the utilities, the gas, the water, the electricity supply. Everything else you've got to deal with for yourself. You've still got to bring the furniture, you've got to do the cooking, the cleaning, everything else. And that's a bit like co-location, because you're taking your infrastructure somewhere else, so someone's looking after the utility side of it. So that's the first thing that we do. The second thing that we do then with some of our customers who have made a decision that they don't want to own the infrastructure anymore, they don't want to just rent an unfurnished flat, they actually want to rent a furnished flat. They want to move into somewhere that has a sofa and a bed and wardrobes and all of those other things that you associated with a fully furnished rental property. There's still things that you have to do in that scenario. And what we call that in our world is infrastructure as a service. So basically, we have a big platform made up of compute, storage, networking, and a customer says, I need this much of it. And they take a slice of it and they run it for themselves. So they run their own applications, their own operating systems. They deal with the day-to-day stuff. They deal with backing it up. They still deal with all of those things that they deal with today. But what they're not dealing with anymore is looking after that underlying infrastructure. That's our responsibility at that point. So we have our unfurnished flat. We have our furnished flat. Where do we go next as we kind of take that digital transformation journey? The place we go next is what we call in the industry platform as a service. And you'll get into debates with techies about this day in, day out. What is platform as a service? Well, I'm sticking with my definition for this particular scenario. And platform as a service is where an organization says, yeah, I don't want to be investing CapEx in infrastructure. I want it in somebody else's data center, but I don't want to own it. They've made those decisions. But actually, there's a lot of things, and kind of, as I alluded to in the intro, in the debate that Carl and I had around what the IT team needs to do on a day-to-day basis. So we would look after patching operating systems, managing Active Directory, doing backups. All of that BAU stuff gets done for you. And that, for me, is a little bit like a service department. If we go up to the next level, platform as a service department. So they come in and they clean it for you and they change your bed linen on a regular basis. But there still are things that you need to do. And then I think if you think about, Dan's business to a degree, which is the next step up the ladder, which is, software as a service, as we talk about in sort of that infrastructure, platform, software stage. Software as a service that's your hotel, that's your 5-star hotel. All of that technology is abstracted from you, and you just consume it. You have your concierge. They tell you the best route to the theatre. They know where to get tickets from. That's the kind of the next step up that food chain in terms of, colo is your basic entry point, your unfurnished flat. Infrastructure as a service is your furnished flat. Platform as a service is your service department. And then software as a service is your 5-star hotel. And that's the journey that people go on with this. Obviously, on top of that, we then get this curveball that's been thrown at us, which is pandemic, remote working, people working on any device from anywhere, mobile devices that aren't even owned by the corporation. And historically, I think we've taken this standpoint that I'm in the office, I'm on the corporate network, I'm behind the corporate firewalls, I'm in this little safe, secure bubble. That's just not true anymore. It was changing anyway, with remote working becoming more popular, but not necessarily mainstream. That change that we will now see to hybrid working means that we have to think about security in a different way. And there are some buzzwords in the industry. People talk about zero trust network access or secure edge, service edge, SASE and ZTNA. What does that mean in reality? They're just like 4 letters. What it means is you have to start thinking in a different way. You have to start thinking everything is hostile. Everything is a risk to my business, whether it's a home worker, whether it's somebody on a mobile device. And we have to go about protecting those endpoints, those mobile devices, laptops, whatever they may be, in a different way. And also securing access to SaaS-based services. Where's the security layer around there? So we have to change that quite a bit. Now, add to that the complexity of doing it. I'm a small IT team. I'm really busy. I've got this mandate that we need to be secure in this new way of working. How on earth am I going to get there? I've got 5 or 6 vendors that I use for different products, one for email filtering, one for this, one for that. It becomes a huge overhead. Excuse me, running out of voice. And that's where we make I'm going to have a drink. Apologies, everybody. 9th Zoom call of the day. I'm sure we're all used to it. And that's where we help organizations. That's where we help businesses. We help them understand where their risks are. We take the approach that we understand what they're trying to achieve in their organization and then map onto that the services that they need to achieve their business aims. And that really, for me, is the simplification and demystification of cloud. And that changing security landscape where we have to think about it differently. It's not about what's in the corporation, what's in the corporate network. It's about everything that we access. Everyone uses Office 365. People use Salesforce.com. People are putting some things into public cloud, some things on private cloud, some things in co-location, remote workers, mobile devices. We just have to change that mindset slightly and think, right, everything is a potential risk to my organization. We see ransomware. I mean, go onto the BBC website every day and tell me there's not a new story about someone having a ransomware attack or a malware attack. It's there, it's happening. It's state-sponsored in some cases. How do we defend ourselves against this? And I think the 3 takeaways for me around that sort of zero trust networking is, number one, the most important thing is the human firewall. So people, as we discussed earlier in the session, how do we ensure that our employees, that our colleagues are best able to protect themselves from these very, very cleverly engineered attacks? And that's all about security awareness training. The second thing is, how do we protect those endpoints and those devices in a way that we used to protect things when they're inside the corporate firewall? And then thirdly, when it comes to an incident or a breach, we have to take the approach that it is a when and not an if. And therefore, we need to have those robust incident response plans, be able to remediate, but also have the visibility that something has changed. This is key for organizations to say, this is what normal looks like. And this is where maybe AI and machine learning comes into it. One of the vendors that we work with has a system that normalizes what goes on within your environment, understands what a normal day at company ABC looks like. And if something different starts happening, it tells us about it. And then we can go and look and find out whether that is something that needs to be dealt with or whether it's just an anomaly in the system, because nothing is 100% accurate. So they're the kind of the key takeaways from that. Again, security awareness, make sure that everyone in your organization is prepared to understand, oh, that email looks a bit dodgy. I don't think I should open that. Number 2, that their devices, their endpoints, their mobiles are all protected in the same way you used to protect with inside the corporation. And then thirdly, when it happens, you know how to react to it and you know how to deal with it.
Excellent. Thank you, Phil. And got a question that's come in here from Andrew Robbins from PM Connect. And it says, re-risks. Do you think that in all the noise around work from home in this last 18 months, lots of organisations have largely ignored questions around security when staff are not in the walled garden of the office, working from laptops on home broadband, for example? And if so, are they ignoring it because it's more convenient than taking it seriously?
I think it's awareness. I think it's understanding that it's different, and also the velocity of the teams to be able to deal with that change as well, because they've still got to do the day job, and now in a different way because they're not sat next to the servers anymore in a lot of cases. So it's made it a lot more tricky. And the other thing that I'd say is that it's 24/7, 365 days a year as well. Typical IT team, 9 to 5, 5:30 Monday to Friday. Yes, we know you all, any IT teams out there, you do go in on the weekends, you do work overnighters to get things fixed, but you don't have that 24/7 presence, monitoring, understanding, looking. So I think it's not necessarily a case of ignoring it. It's maybe more a case of really not understanding it.
Excellent. Thank you, Phil. Now, the observant amongst you might have noticed that Carl has rejoined us, but his face has changed. And so Carl is not an AI robot that's just decided to change its human face halfway through the call. We've got a message from Carl that says, ironically, the internet connection has gone down at the exchange, which is where he is. So he's not been able to join. So I believe Craig.
Yes. Hello.
Senior automation engineer and dropping in at short notice to demystify AI and process automation. So Craig, we're going to go easy with you.
Yes, please do, because you've given me quite the introduction there. I'm Craig, senior automation engineer at Synaptech.
But Tell us from your perspective. Try and kind of simplify it for us. What is this? What's this process automation? What is this AI? And how and why does it matter to businesses out there, people who are on the call running businesses who think it all sounds really complicated?
It's really time saving for us as humans, and process efficiencies for businesses. So if there's an HR process that's fully documented and it's all written down and we have people doing that, if it's documented, you can automate that process, which ultimately frees up humans to do the more valuable stuff. So that's process automation in a nutshell. On the AI side of things, it's really adding sugar to those processes. So in that process, what happens if there's little anomalies, for instance, that a human would never detect? So at a certain time of the month, something weird happens. AI and machine learning can detect those kind of things that humans wouldn't be able to, which allows you then to investigate and find out what's going on.
Excellent. You really have simplified it there for us. So tell us about some of the contexts, I guess, where this applies. Give us some real life examples.
Real life examples. You
don't have to name businesses, but you talk us through some of the types of process. I guess you mentioned some sort of HR processes and stuff there. What things typically does Spherica work on? Or Synaptech, if you remember.
Yeah,
Synaptech
well, we do a lot of work in internal processes. So, for argument's sake, I'll not talk about AI, I'll just talk about a business process here. HR process for requesting holidays. There's multiple ways to do this. You have quite a few applications. So we could have a holiday tool, something like Workday. That has a back end which will send an email to the manager or something when somebody requests a holiday. What we do with that is we just try to simplify it. Why can't we do that in one place? So we use a collaboration tool called Slack, and in that portal we go, hey, I would like a holiday. We get a little pop-up that says, okay, when do you want it? I want it next Tuesday, for argument's sake. That then kicks off a process. It's called an API, Application Programming Interface, which is basically a connection to the Workday application, which will create the holiday. At that point, we have more processes that will send a message to my boss, in this case, Carl, who I am masquerading as right now. And he'll get a notification in his Slack as well that says, hey, Craig's asked for some time off on Tuesday. He can then say yes or no. And then nobody's gone into any other application. He's got a notification on his phone. That's it, automated. And to expand on that, you can use things like AI to say, well, actually, Craig's colleague is off on Tuesday as well. Therefore, I get an immediate message back that says, you can't have that. Choose your new day off.
Yeah. That's speaking to me as somebody who's had to sign off hundreds of thousands probably of leave requests. Then, that sort of technology solution that enables you to understand, because actually as a manager signing things off, often you don't know who's going to be off that day. So, okay, that's a great real life example.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you, Craig. So a couple of questions here in the chat, which is kind of general questions. So I'm going to look to get a view from each of you. I think we've got about 10 minutes left. So there's a question here, first of all, from Ian Mansell. And he says, some of the examples given can sound quite scary to a non-technical company that may not even have a website or a CRM system, let alone adopting AI. As we all move to a digitally enabled world, what steps need to be taken to encourage less innovative or tech-savvy businesses to have the confidence to start their own digital transformation journey? Dan, what do you think on that one? So,
well, I think so. I think for me, for the uninitiated or the less tech savvy firm, there are an awful lot of service providers out there now that will provide you, and Phil probably will expand on this, provide you a platform as a service or a website as a service. And effectively, all you then have to do is the nice, easy, GUI bits of the graphical user interface, to totally de-jargon it, to provide you a really easy website to build, and you can build that extremely quickly without really having to employ any technical team yourself. And a lot of the service providers probably that are sponsoring Birmingham Tech Week would be able to help you out with some of those things. And I think the bit that's sort of moved since I started working from a technology perspective is that we've moved away from people having to employ a team specifically because they have a website to actually you can potentially have zero IT support owned within your business, and you can farm the entire thing out if you want to. And then it allows you to then just focus on the bit that you do really well. That's how I'd sort of look at it from there. Obviously, when you start delving into other aspects and you delve into more of the tech side of things, AI as a service is certainly being bandied around by the larger players, and I'm sure Carl will have a view on that one as well. But the idea is that it's very rare that you'll have to tackle a technology problem on your own by choice. Like, you should be able to find someone out there that will help you with a specific set of problems.
Excellent. So, Craig, you're not along. Phil, anything you'd add to that?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, the most important thing that we do with our customers is we go in and we understand their business. That is 101. You have to understand the customer's business. What are they trying to achieve as an organization? What are their growth aspirations? What compliance regimes do they need to adhere to today or maybe in the future? Where is their data currently? How are they protecting their data currently? How will they deal with a security incident? Really getting to understand the customer and really know their business then allows you to say, here's a roadmap. Let's lay this out for the next 3 years, because you're not going to do it overnight. Let's be realistic about these things. This is where you are today, and we recommend these are some of the steps that you could take to get you where you need to get to, and not to try and eat the elephant in one bite, as it were. I think that's a mistake that some people have made, and we've seen it recently where people have just said, right, a CIO somewhere has had to come up with a strategy. And I actually went into a large NHS trust once and saw this on the wall of the IT team's kind of dungeon in their basement that they had. And it was the CIO strategy, and it said everything to the cloud. And I thought, that's nonsense. It doesn't mean anything. It's just a soundbite. It probably sounded good around the board table, perhaps, but in reality, what on earth did this team do? They've got absolutely no idea the direction to take. But going in and understanding what they were trying to achieve in that trust, where their challenges were, what they were experiencing on a day-to-day basis that was stopping them being more effective and getting to their transformation programs, allowed us then to put together a plan that said, let's what do you think about this? We'll do some of that. We'll do a bit of this. We'll do this. We can do that. And just having that debate and as I say, using English, not techie jargon about stuff, going in there and understanding them, that is absolutely the critical thing. So for those organizations that aren't tech savvy, that I think there's a load of improvements I can make to my business, but I don't even know what they are yet. Talk to somebody who can take you on that journey. It would be my advice.
Excellent. Thank you, Phil. And Craig, anything you'd add?
Yeah. For me, it starts small. You don't like what Phil just said, you don't have to go big straight away. Pick a process that you do on a daily basis that maybe takes you 5 minutes and start there. And you can grow from there.
Cool. Great advice. So start small, prioritize, don't try and solve all the problems all at once. Excellent. Well, we've got one final question that we're going to finish with, and it's from Suzanne And it says the words digital transformation are often overused. So what should digital transformation mean in the new world of hybrid working? So nice, simple, easy question to finish with. And I guess, Phil, you touched on this a little bit with security when you were talking about endpoint devices and all of that. But what's your views of hybrid working and how that's going to impact digital transformation in the workplace?
So yeah, I mean, the world has changed, and as I said before, it's accelerated something that would probably have taken 5 years has taken 18 months. Just the nature of having to do it has made us have to do things in a different way. It's very complicated. Digital transformation, what on earth does that mean? You sit around a dinner party table and say, yes, digital transformation, that's really important to a business. No one's going to understand what on earth you're talking about. It's just jargon. What it means is using technology to make businesses more efficient, more effective, more productive, more profitable, easier to grow. Technology has to be seen as an enabler for business. It's not technology for technology's sake. That is absolutely pointless. Oh, we've got to be in the cloud because everyone else is. No. What you need to do is to look at technology and how it can improve your business, whether that means you're removing risk. So the risk of a ransomware attack, the risk of malware on an end user's computer. Sometimes these things are underestimated in terms of that impact and cost to a business when things go wrong. And I wrote an article about 11 years ago that was published in Information Security magazine. And it was quite clear. And it said, information security is a board topic. It should be talked about by the boards of businesses, small businesses, medium businesses, large business. It's not a technology function, 100%. And to a degree, nor is technology a technology function, it's a business enabler. And as soon as you get your head into that way of thinking about it, I'm going to use technology to make more money. I like that idea. Let's go and have a look at that. I'm going to use technology to make myself more productive. That sounds like a good idea. I'm going to use technology so that I don't have exponential operational costs of trying to hire people that I can't as I grow. So when you think about it in the context of business, rather than in the kind of the siloed context of it being a technology discipline, that's when it makes the difference to me, digital transformation, because that's what it's about.
Excellent. Dan, what do you think?
I think Phil's hit the nail on the head. The only way I'd describe it slightly differently is, and purely because I did a chemistry degree, is effectively the technology, all it is a catalyst for the reaction, which is your business. And yes, a catalyst might be a very, very expensive catalyst, and boards in particular can look at the cost of technology and say, we can't see a return on investment here. But it's that how much quicker can the boat go as you're rowing along? Will it make the boat go faster? And 9 times out of 10, or indeed 10 times out of 10, technology correctly implemented and thought through, and with all the aspects that Craig and Phil talked about earlier on, with the ensuring that you're not trying to eat the elephant in one go, that you pick the low-hanging fruit and make sure that you're not only just looking at the low-hanging fruit, but mapping out that road map of where you've got to go all the way through. Technology is going to take you there, but it is something that you absolutely have to have buy-in all the way through the business, because fundamentally, if the board isn't bought into, yes, we're going to do this, then it's very difficult for you to sell it to the people that are actually doing the processes within your business day in, day out, that are doing their jobs. And the technology isn't there, and AI isn't there to take their jobs off them. It's to make their jobs easier so that they can do more stuff. And fundamentally, AI will never be able to replace, for us in particular, our case managers, our surveyors, looking at a project, talking to a person and saying, do you actually have the ability to deliver this sort of project? And is it appropriate for the place and the property?
Excellent. Thank you, Dan. And Craig, you can have the final word on this before we demolish and get rid of digital transformation.
I don't have an awful lot more to add, to be honest. They've nailed on the head. For us, digital transformation is, it's always going to be a slow burn. You can have the big project on the board that says get to the cloud, but how do you get there? And for us, it's again, start small, pick small processes, and just don't be beholden to the process as it is. So I'll look for the process. If we use an HR, again, HR, that process has been followed for however many years. Can you use technology to help you improve that process? Does that step need to happen? Could this be refactored? And just take it as an opportunity to look at things from a higher level and use technology to make your lives easier.
And I think that's the soundbite for this session, is use technology to make your lives easier, more efficient, more effective, saving time, removing risk, and starting small. So thank you to our panelists we had a very ambitious topic, which was decoding digital transformation. But I think in the 56 minutes that we've had, we've essentially demolished digital transformation. We don't even need those words. It's all about the business, and it's all about efficiency, effectiveness, saving time, removing risk, and making life easier. So thank you to Dan Sullivan. Thank you to Phil Binley. Thank you to Carl Nicholson and to Craig, who has stepped in for Carl at short notice. And thank you to all of our audience members. And have a great day, everybody. We've got another great lineup of events tomorrow, both live and digital. So we hope to see you all there. We shall say good evening, good night, and see you soon.